All right, so get that we're diving into a historical mystery
A historical mystery.
that's still making waves even today.
Oh, wow.
You've probably heard of Sir Francis Drake,
Yeah.
famous
Yeah,
English explorer.
of course.
Well, it turns out there's this huge debate
Huge debate.
about where he actually landed
Okay.
on the West Coast
West Coast.
back in the 1500s.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, so we're talking California, Oregon,
Oh, okay.
that area.
Got it.
Big deal.
Yeah. I mean, one event,
Yeah,
a landing, you said.
yeah, landing shrouded in mystery.
Shrouded in mystery, and it still sparks debate
I know.
centuries later.
That's what we're looking at today.
That's amazing.
So we're taking a deep dive into an episode of the American History Hit podcast
Okay.
that tackles this very question.
All right.
The traditional spot in California is being challenged by new evidence
New evidence.
that points to, wait for it, the Oregon coast.
Wow, the Oregon coast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a big difference.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
And it's not just about like pinpointing it on a map.
Right.
It's about rewriting history.
Exactly.
Early European contact
Yeah.
with Native Americans in that region.
It changes everything we know.
I know the implications are.
Absolutely massive.
So, okay, so Francis Drake, just to do a real quick recap,
Okay.
English explorer,
Right.
second to
Yeah.
circumnavigate the globe.
Second.
Yeah. And he was also a privateer,
A privateer. So basically,
pirate, but with the Queen's blessing.
okay, with a little wink and a nod.
Exactly.
And a queen.
Yeah. Queen Elizabeth I
Oh, yeah.
wanted to challenge Spain and Portugal's.
They had a grip on the seas.
Yeah, grip on the seas. And Drake was her guy
Okay.
to disrupt their trade and explore new routes.
So kind of a thorn in their side.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And one of the big things they were hoping for
Hoping for.
was to find the legendary Northwest Passage
Oh, yeah. Through North America.
through North America.
Yeah, that's a big one.
So Drake sets off on this top secret mission. So secret that his own crew didn't even know where they were going.
What?
They thought they were headed to Egypt.
Oh, wow.
Imagine their surprise
Yeah.
when they ended up rounding the tip of South America.
Wow. Talk about a change of plans.
Right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it really highlights the intrigue
The intrigue.
and the risk
Yes.
of these early voyages.
Yeah, I mean, sailing into the unknown.
The unknown.
Storms, hostile natives.
Right. And oh yeah,
Spanish.
the Spanish warship.
Always a threat.
Constant threat.
Yeah.
And he wasn't just exploring.
Yeah.
This guy was plundering
Plundering.
Spanish ships
Oh, yeah.
and towns.
Wow.
Along the way, in fact, off the coast of Panama,
Okay.
he captured a Spanish treasure galleon.
Oh, wow.
Loaded with so much gold and silver, it'd be worth billions today.
Billions.
Billions.
Talk about a haul.
With a B.
Wow.
So this wasn't just exploration.
Yeah.
It was economic warfare.
Economic warfare.
Drake's raids.
Yeah.
Direct challenge to Spain's power.
Challenging their whole empire.
And a major source of wealth for England.
So England's getting rich.
Yeah, but all that treasure came at a cost.
Uh-oh.
By the time Drake reached the West Coast,
Yeah.
his ship, the Golden Hind,
The Golden Hind.
was in desperate need of repair.
So they needed to stop.
They needed to stop.
Okay.
And that brings us to the heart of the mystery.
Okay.
The landing.
The landing.
For centuries, the
Yeah.
accepted story
Yeah.
is that Drake landed somewhere around 38 degrees north latitude,
38 degrees.
Central California.
California. Okay.
There's even a Drake's Bay named after him.
Drake's Bay makes sense.
Yeah, but here's where things get interesting.
Okay. I'm listening.
That traditional view is largely based on the official account of the voyage,
Right.
which, let's be honest,
Yeah.
was propaganda,
Oh.
crafted to avoid a war with Spain.
They didn't want to poke the bear.
Exactly. So it downplays England's ambitions
Okay.
and glosses over some of Drake's more
Aggressive.
aggressive actions. So the official story
Okay.
might be a little
Just
sanitized.
chives a little bit.
Enter archaeologist Melissa Darby,
Okay.
who decided to dig deeper.
Dig deeper.
She's been combing through primary sources,
Okay.
including a handwritten manuscript
Manuscripts.
that she believes to be an early draft
Early draft.
of the official account
Oh, wow.
before it was, tidied up.
Before they cleaned it up.
And this draft
Yeah.
places the landing much further north,
Further north.
around 44 degrees north latitude,
Okay.
which puts it right on the Oregon coast.
The Oregon coast. Wow.
Yeah, and what's impressive about Darby's work
Yeah.
is that she doesn't just rely on revised coordinates.
Okay.
She dives into these ethnographic details
Ethnographic details.
recorded by Drake and his crew,
Okay.
descriptions of the native people,
Yeah.
customs,
Customs.
homes.
Even their food.
Wow, she really went deep.
And what she found
Okay.
doesn't quite line up.
With what we know about the Native American tribes
Yeah.
who lived in Central California
Okay.
back then,
Right.
the housing styles, the types of food they ate,
Yeah.
even their reactions to Drake's arrival,
Interesting.
it all points towards a different group of people.
A different group of people.
The tribes who lived further north along the Oregon coast.
So the Oregon Coast tribes match better
That's better.
than the California tribes.
For example,
Yeah.
Drake described the native dwellings,
As a
partially underground structures,
underground
covered with planks.
planks. Okay.
This matches perfectly with the plank houses
Plank houses, yeah.
built by the tribes of the Northwest coast.
Okay.
But it's very different
Very different.
from the dome-shaped grass huts,
Grass huts.
common in Central California.
Oh, wow. That's a big difference.
Yeah, the difference in housing styles,
Yeah.
pretty significant.
Very significant.
Mm.
Yeah. Did Darby find any other details?
Oh, yeah.
That kind of contradicted the California theory.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Like what?
Remember that Drake mentioned this root
A root?
called pa
Okay.
that the natives ate,
Okay.
both raw and cooked.
Raw and cooked.
He even described a type of cake made from this root
A cake?
called sapple.
Sapple. Interesting.
Well, this closely resembles a root called wapito.
What pedo?
That was a staple food for many Northwest Coast tribes.
Okay.
And the word sap is strikingly similar to the Chinook word for bread made with wapito.
Wow. That's fascinating.
It's like a culinary clue
A culinary clue.
that's been hidden in plain sight for centuries.
Hidden for centuries.
And it gets even more intriguing
More intriguing.
when you consider the thunder god theory that Darby proposes.
The thunder god theory. Okay.
So Drake and his crew,
Yeah.
with their massive
Well,
ship,
Massive.
booming cannons,
Yeah.
were unlike anything these native people had ever seen before.
I can only imagine.
And according to Darby, their reaction wasn't just awe or fear.
Oh.
It was something much deeper.
Deep.
They seemed to believe that Drake was a manifestation of their thunder god,
Their thunder god.
this powerful deity
Powerful deed.
who controlled the elements
Wow.
and could punish those who displeased him.
So they thought Drake was like a god.
Like a god.
That's amazing.
So that's a fascinating idea.
Yeah, but how can we be sure
Yeah,
that
but-
that's what they actually believed?
Right. What evidence is there?
Is there to support that?
Well, she points to a very specific detail
Specific detail.
recorded by Drake's men.
Okay.
The natives burned offerings
Burned offerings
in front of them,
in front of
a
them
ritual that was often performed to appease the thunder god
to appease the thunder god.
when they felt they had done something wrong.
They were trying to make things right.
Exactly. And this kind of ritualistic burning
Yeah.
was practiced by Oregon tribes,
Oregon tribes.
but not by those in California.
Okay, so another point for Oregon.
Another point for Oregon.
Interesting.
So we got the housing styles,
Yeah.
the food,
A food.
now this thunder god connection
Thunder god.
is starting to add up
Yeah, it's looking more and more like Oregon.
to a pretty compelling case for an Oregon landing.
A compelling case for Oregon.
Yeah, and it raises some interesting questions
Interesting questions like
about how we interpret history.
how we interpret history.
What happens when new evidence challenges long-held beliefs?
Long-held beliefs, sometimes we have to re-examine what we thought we knew.
And how do we decide which story to believe?
Which story to believe.
Yeah, so this controversy isn't just about the past.
Right.
It's about how we understand history itself.
History itself.
But before we get too deep into that,
Okay.
let's talk about what happened to Drake after this controversial landing.
Right.
Did he stick around and explore the West Coast further,
Yeah.
or did he set sail for home?
That's a good question. That's a great question.
So if Drake really did land in Oregon, why don't we have more evidence?
That's the million-dollar question.
Did it be like remnants of his encampment or something?
Right, you'd think so, but while there's no definitive, physical proof in Oregon, yet it doesn't automatically, debunk Darby's theory.
Okay, yeah,
I mean, think about it. It's been over 400 years.
that's true.
Wooden structures would have decayed, metal could have been scavenged, and who knows what the shifting sands of time have hidden.
That's a good point. Absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence, right?
Exactly.
But I'm sure there are people who aren't so quick to jump on the Oregon bandwagon.
Oh, yeah, of course.
What are some of the counterarguments to Darby's theory?
Well, as you can imagine, the traditional California narrative is pretty deeply entrenched.
Yeah, it's been part of the state's history for centuries.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. Drake's Bay statues, there's even a hotel named after him, all centered around that 38 degrees north latitude.
Yeah, I can see how challenging that long-held belief could be met with some resistance.
Oh, absolutely. Some historians argue that Darby is maybe too focused on the ethnographic details that fit her theory while overlooking others that don't.
So they're saying she's cherry-picking the evidence to fit her narrative.
It's a valid concern. I mean, we always have to be wary of confirmation bias, even in historical research.
Right.
It's important to look at the whole picture, not just the pieces that support a particular viewpoint.
Okay, so there are strong opinions on both sides.
Definitely.
But I'm still curious about this whole thunder god theory.
Yeah,
It's such a striking image, these native people mistaking Drake for a deity.
it is a powerful image.
Do we have any other accounts from that time period that mentions similar beliefs?
You know, there are actually accounts from other early European explorers who encountered similar reactions from indigenous people in different parts of the world.
Interesting.
When you show up with technology that's completely beyond anything they've ever seen before,
Yeah.
it's not surprising that they might interpret it through a spiritual lens.
It makes you wonder what would be like to encounter something so utterly foreign, so far beyond your understanding, that you would see it as a supernatural event.
It's a humbling thought, and it reminds us that our perceptions shape our reality.
Yeah.
What Drake and his crew saw as exploration and conquest, the native people may have interpreted as something entirely different.
That's such an important reminder, especially when studying history.
Absolutely.
We have to try to see things from multiple perspectives, not just through our own modern lens.
I completely agree.
But okay, let's say for argument's sake that Darby is right, and Drake did land in Oregon. What happened next?
Okay.
Did he continue sailing north?
Well, even though the evidence seems to point to that landing further north, historical records indicate that Drake eventually set sail westward across the vast Pacific Ocean.
Oh, okay.
Remember, he was still determined to find that westward passage back to England.
Right, the Northwest Passage.
Exactly, and plus, after all those daring raids, I'm sure he was eager to avoid any more run-ins with Spanish ships.
Yeah, smart move, especially with all that treasure on board.
Exactly.
So did he find the Northwest Passage?
He didn't. Unfortunately, that elusive route remained a mystery for centuries. Drake ended up sailing south, making stops in the Philippines and Indonesia, before finally rounding the tip of Africa and arriving back in England in 1580.
Wow, what an epic journey.
A true circumnavigation.
But we talked earlier about how his return wasn't exactly a hero's welcome.
Right.
What was the deal with that?
Well, even though Drake had achieved this incredible feat circumnavigating the globe, he was initially treated with some suspicion by the English court.
Why is that?
Well, remember, England and Spain were still technically at peace,
Oh, right.
and Drake's plundering could have sparked a war.
Oh, yeah.
Queen Elizabeth had to tread carefully.
So Drake was basically told to keep a low profile.
Pretty much.
That must have been frustrating after all he'd accomplished.
It was a complex situation. Drake was a man of action, driven by adventure and ambition, but he was also pragmatic.
Yeah.
He understood the political realities of the time and knew when to hold back.
But his time in the shadows didn't last forever, right?
No, not at all. He was eventually knighted by Queen Elizabeth and went on to lead successful naval campaigns against the Spanish Armada.
So he got his due.
He did. He became a national hero, a symbol of England's growing maritime power.
It's amazing to think that this same guy who was initially treated with suspicion for his daring raids became such a celebrated figure in English history.
It really speaks to his complex character and the tumultuous times he lived in.
Yeah.
But despite all the fame and glory, the mystery of his 1579 landing remains a puzzle that historians are still trying to piece together.
And that brings us back to Melissa Darby's work.
Yes.
Whether or not you agree with her conclusions, she's done something incredibly important.
That's that.
She's challenged the status quo, forced us to re-examine what we thought we knew, and opened up new avenues for historical inquiry.
Yeah, completely agree. It's a reminder that history is not a static set of facts.
Right?
It's an ongoing conversation, a process of discovery and reinterpretation.
And who knows, maybe someday new evidence will emerge that definitively solves the mystery of Drake's Landing. But until then, we're left with this fascinating puzzle, a reminder that there's always more to learn, even about the most famous figures from our past.
That's the beauty of history, isn't it? There's always another layer to uncover, another story to tell.
So where do we go from here?
Whoa.
What are the implications of Darby's research And what does this all tell us about the nature of historical inquiry?
Those are great questions, and that's what we'll explore in our next segment.
Okay, so we've got this compelling new theory about Drake's Landing, but it's sparked a lot of debate.
Yeah.
What are the bigger implications of Darby's work?
Well,
Does this change how we understand Drake's legacy or even early colonial history in general?
that's the really exciting part. I mean, Darby's research isn't just about moving a pin on the map.
Right.
It's about reevaluating our understanding of the past. If Drake landed in Oregon, it means the first European contact with Native Americans in that region happened decades earlier than we thought.
Wow.
And that has a ripple effect on how we view everything from trade relations to cultural exchange to, unfortunately, the spread of diseases.
That's a sobering thought.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that even a seemingly small detail, like the location of a landing, can have huge ramifications.
Absolutely. And it also highlights the importance of questioning accepted narratives and being open to new evidence, even if it challenges long-held beliefs.
Speaking of challenging beliefs, how has the historical community reacted to Darby's theory?
Um,
Has there been pushback?
there has, as you might expect, it's not easy to overturn centuries of accepted history.
Right.
Some scholars remain skeptical, arguing that the ethnographic evidence isn't conclusive.
Okay.
Others point to the lack of physical evidence in Oregon as a major hurdle.
So it's a healthy debate,
Yeah,
which is how it should be in
exactly.
the world of history.
No one has all the answers.
Right.
And there's always room for new interpretations and discoveries.
Precisely. Darby's work has sparked a fascinating conversation, and it's likely to continue for years to come. It's a reminder that history is a living thing, constantly evolving as we uncover new evidence and re-examine old assumptions.
I like that history is a living thing.
And that's what makes it so captivating. It's not just about memorizing dates and names. It's about unraveling mysteries, challenging our preconceived notions, and piecing together a more complete and nuanced understanding of the past.
A nuanced understanding.
Exactly. And in this case, the mystery is far from solved. We may never know for sure where Drake landed,
True.
but the search for answers is just as important as the answers themselves.
I agree.
It reminds us that there's always more to learn, more to explore, and more to debate.
Always more.
And who knows, maybe someday new evidence will emerge that sheds even more light on this historical enigma. But until then, we're left with this tantalizing puzzle, a reminder that even the most well-known figures from our past can still surprise us.
That's so true.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. It's amazing how one podcast episode can open up so many new avenues for exploration.
I agree. It really is amazing.
If our listeners want to learn more about Melissa Darby's research, where should they go?
Well, Darby has a book called Thunder Go North that delves into her findings in detail. It's a great read for anyone who wants to explore this historical mystery further.
I'm definitely adding that to my reading list.
Mhm.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope it sparked your curiosity and given you a new perspective on a familiar story.
It's been a pleasure being here, and I hope everyone listening continues to explore the fascinating world of Drake's voyages and the early encounters between Europeans and Native Americans.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to subscribe to the deep dive for more explorations into the mysteries and wonders of history. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.